Hello again, and welcome back to On Storyteller's Night. I'm Nathan, joined as always by my co-host Josh.
Hello, everyone.
So, quickly, first, how have you been this past week?
Busy, but not overly busy this time. I've been quite reserved.
Reserved you? That doesn't sound
Yeah,
right.
I know.
But your college stuff's doing well, and you're pretty much finished now, have you?
No, I've still got a while to go yet with my college work. I've got about a month left.
Mm.
It's just that I'm taking everything slowly now. I've got my work done properly.
Yeah.
Today, I got my work done properly. Bloody blah, that was all dealt with. And I've been chilling out all day today, to be fair. I woke up at 1 o'clock in the morning for some random reason. I was like, do you know what? I can't go back to sleep. And do you want to know what I did, Nath, today?
What did you do?
Well, I've only just gone and done and rewatched the first 3 films of Star Wars.
Wow.
The original extended versions as well. So happy on that.
Nice.
But this week I've been pretty reserved, less productive than I usually would be, besides doing that, like 3-4 hours of college work a day.
Yeah.
What about yourself?
Usual. Last week is obviously the last week of work going into half term as it is now. And of course we have rain because it's a bank holiday and half term, so that's always fun. But on a side note, you just mentioned Star Wars. Just before we started this, I watched some deleted scenes from Return of the Jedi, which I've not actually seen before, like the sandstorm and stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
Which I've not seen before, but it's just a weird coincidence. You were watching the original ones, and I just happened to see it on YouTube. It's like, oh, I'll have a look at that. Kind of interesting. How strange. But yeah, other than that.
I watched all 3 of them back to back, to be fair. As soon as I went through Disney Plus and I saw Star Wars, like, you know what? It's been a couple years.
You got to do it sometimes, you know. It's like I'm rereading the Dresden Files, which is one of my favourite book series of all time. I'm on book, I don't know, 9 or 10 now. I started reading about Christmas, so I've not. I go for a stage where I'll read it like constantly, and then I'll have a couple of nights off and not read it for a little bit, and then go back to it. So it's like one of the things. But Dresden Files, one of my all-time favourites. Such a good book series. If you haven't read it, definitely read them. They're so good. I can't be without my Kindle these days. I used to love books, and I love books still. I tend to collect more notebooks now than actual books because I still like pen and paper, although I've got digital notebooks and stuff. Like I've got a Kindle Scribe. So I've got a whole digital one, which is really good. So I can read books on it, but I can also use it as a digital notebook and draw in and everything else. It's really, really good. But I just like writing on paper as well. I like notebooks. And obviously I did a review of a notebook I got from Kickstarter, but I've got another review of yet another notebook coming soon. One from Orbit Key, if you've ever heard of them.
I have not.
So they're a company that do kind of very geeky and nerdy solutions for like everyday carry items. So they started off with, you know, those little like leather key holders you get where all the keys kind of like fold in together on one keyring, and it's just kind of like a little rectangle of like leather and the keys fit in between it. You know, that sort of kind of thing. Well, they created that, and then they've moved on to like there's this box called the Nest, which I've got, which is quite good, where it's like a little box. It has like a leather top on it and has like a little area you can store stuff like when it's on a desk. It's got a built-in wireless charger. You open it up, it's got this weird hinge where you can either take the lid off or you can open it up like a hinge, and you get like storage inside with like these little dividers you can move around to put chargers and whatever else you may carry every day. And there's like a slot for a pen and stuff like that. But I got one of those a while ago, really cheap on eBay. And I picked up ones, well, and I've got also something that's called a compendium, which is like a leather cover for a notebook. To get like a pen holder and all that sort of thing. And I've got something else called a laptop for it. But they actually do, once again, this is a really weird coincidence. We're talking about this, and you'll see why now. But they do collaborations with different companies. One of them was Star Wars.
Okay.
So I got the Star Wars ones because they're selling them all off because it's the end of the collaboration and they're just selling off the stock because they've got new collaborations. And they did two versions. They did the Obi-Wan Kenobi version and the Darth Vader version. The Darth Vader version is completely black with like red stitching in the leather, and it's got like a lightsaber in it that's kind of like recessed into the leather, just like a black shiny outline of a lightsaber, and then it's got like the red blade coming off it as well, and it's all kind of matching. It's all just black with like red highlights everywhere. And it's got like Star Wars quotes, and like you get the Imperial symbol on the Darth Vader one, you get the Rebel symbol on the Obi-Wan, and they're really cool and really nerdy and really useful. And it's cool. It's just weird that we're talking about Star Wars, and I just literally had these last week delivered. And it's like, it's really weird. It's all Star Wars today.
Yeah, maybe let's see if the topic that you've got for us tonight is. I swear to God.
This is a really simple but terrifying question. Okay.
Oh God.
Which sci-fi universe would be the absolute worst to wake up in tomorrow?
All right. Okay.
So we'll do a kind of ranking for it. You know, mildly unpleasant all the way up to instant nightmare fuel. So we'll do is have a little bit of like criteria in place so we can kind of mark each one and then kind of have a ranking of what would be the better ones to live in, what would be the worst. We don't have to just concentrate on the worst, but we could also do what would be the nice ones to live in and why they'd be nice, you know. So look, so a couple of criteria. So
just
we can add to this.
Just before you begin, mate, I'm going to get my notes up so I can share it with you once we've finished.
Yeah.
So I'll whatever ones we decide to rank, I'll share it to you, and we can sort something out for like a link people can click on, have a look for themselves.
Yeah, that'd be cool. This is where a video podcast would work, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know? So
maybe season 2.
Yeah, I think it'd be good. Now you're starting to get into the whole webcam thing. I think it'd be quite good because we could then share our screens and do that kind of side of it, which I think would be quite interesting. So a couple of criteria, but we can obviously expand from this. So criteria number 1, this is obviously for badness, you know, things that we wouldn't want, unpleasant places. So first one, constant war. There's a lot of sci-fi that has a constant war.
Yep.
Right. So that's an easy one to explain. Oppressive regimes. So things like the Empire and stuff like that, where they're just oppressive and control everything you do and that sort of thing.
Okay.
Next one, a high mortality rate. So you're not expected to live very long because maybe it's because of the wars or the regimes, and there's a lot of, you know, maybe gas chambers and they're collecting people up that don't agree with them or whatever else.
Yeah.
So alien invasions, because that's always a nasty one. And once again, sci-fi, so it makes sense. So dystopian control. So this would be the ones where it's kind of maybe that there's been a nuclear war or something else, and everything is kind of controlled by governments, and you know the strongest survive. And if you have a look at anything like Mad Max or something, it's always the stronger people are in control. So maybe it's that kind of thing. No coffee? Should we add that? No, possibly not. So maybe not the no coffee thing. But what other ones do you think we should add to that make it kind of a place you wouldn't want to live?
So you've got constant war, oppressive regimes, high mortality rates, alien invasions, dystopian control.
Yeah. Is that enough reasons for it to be awful if it hits those?
It all depends, because I've got a few in my head, but then again, they're more of the more grounded and not sci-fi. Because there's this book series that I've read that is very sci-fi orientated, and I believe I've told you before, it's called the Gap series.
Mm-hmm.
Good read, very morbid as well, but it's more of the pirate and what's the word? Because there was a word for it, like you've mentioned earlier with the different stuff with constant war down to dystopian control. It had its own little thing, and it's all about like the pirates in No Man's Sky.
Yeah,
I don't know what the actual word is, but it's that.
Yeah. Okay, we can.
I just put space pirates.
Yeah. Space pirates. There's a lot of space pirates and lots of different things in different contexts and different ways, aren't there?
Yeah. So how are we going to do this? We're going to rate them from like worst to
Well, I
best,
think
or
we'll,
just
we'll
put them into genre?
well, I think like worst to best, because what we can start with, if we, just like a tick for each one of these if it hits them, and then any other comments for, this just sucks in every way. So maybe, if it hits all of these, then it's somewhere you wouldn't want to live. And then, as I said, we can always add to it. But I think we'll start it off with probably the one that's going to win overall, in my opinion. So, Warhammer 40,000. In the grim darkness of the dark future, there is only war. Let's be honest, this
We're
is going to be
involving
this.
the entire Warhammer, Necromunda, and Space Marines, or just Warhammer and Space?
No, that is Warhammer 40,000.
Yeah.
That is the
All right,
Warhammer
sweet. So
40,000
all
universe in its entirety. So Gorka Morka, Warhammer 40k, Space Marine, Necromunda, that's all in the Warhammer 40k universe, isn't it? So that's all combined into one, and each of them is because of something else in the 40k universe. So the first criteria, constant war. Yeah, just a little bit. The whole galaxy is at war. There's no peace. It's absolutely ridiculous. So yeah, constant war. That's definitely it's got one of those. Oppressive regimes, hell yeah. Let's be honest, it's absolutely ridiculous. The fascism and so on is just crazy. It's like it's not a good place to live if you're not a human. And if you are a
immortality
human,
is
it's really not good. Even if you are a human, let's be honest, it's kind of dreadful. Human life is cheap. They just throw
it
demons
is.
at things. It's dreadful.
High, that means high mortality rate
Very high mortality rate.
for both
It's
parties, aliens
ridiculous.
and the
Everybody, yeah.
Warhammer.
And let's be
Everything.
honest, you wouldn't be there as a spaceman. You'd be there as a normal human, and your life expectancy is pretty low, and nobody gives a shit about you. So yeah, that's dreadful. Alien invasions, oh yeah,
Definitely.
constant. But not only that, demon incursions as well as alien invasions. Let's be honest. That's just like no, that is horrific. Dystopian control, yeah, just all kind of
A
combined.
certain degree, but I will agree there.
Well,
And
you look at things like Necromunda and things like that. That is kind of that sort of environment where everything is broken
because
down and failed. And
we've discussed before that Space Marines is before Warhammer 40k, and then you've got Necromunda, which is the underworld, the underbelly of 40k, and
yeah,
40k
exactly.
is 40k its own thing. That's the surface.
Yeah, exactly. But that's the thing. If you're a normal human, you might be in one of the underground cities from like Necromunda and that sort of thing. So it's all it's all part of the same universe, isn't it? So yeah, that's an awful place, and it's probably better off than living on the surface with the constant demon attacks and orcs and everyone else attacks. So it's one of the lesser of evils, I suppose. It's a bit. So I have a feeling this is going to be one of the top of the list because it is an awful place to live, no matter what you are. Let's be honest, it's not a fun place.
So I'll just put 40k as like rate out a 9 out of 10. I'd say a 9.
It's not a 10, to be honest. It is
You
a
know what?
complete nightmare, isn't it? There isn't what good things like this is. So we've got the criteria for it to bad. What about criteria to make it good? So peace, yeah, that's the main thing. Peace and a long life expectancy, plenty of like food and shelter and things like that is easy to get. There's a benevolent government system that is run for the people, by the people, and that sort of thing. So none of that is 40k.
No.
At all. So it loses out on everything, doesn't it? But I think those are the kind of things to think if we're looking at things that might be a nice place to live. It's kind of the opposite of those, really, isn't it? So if all of these, if they don't have these, then they're the opposite of them, really, isn't it?
Then just a quick one again. Are we going to take it in turns, or do you want to just keep listing? I don't mind either way.
I don't mind. I can list a few, and then if you have an idea, you can.
Well,
do you have ideas of some? And
I've got some ideas, so
Okay.
we might as well go back and forth, back and forth.
Yep, that's fine with me.
My first one that I've got in mind is if we're going down the sci-fi route, I'm going to go aliens and Predator world. The Alien and Predator, Xenomorph
the
and
Alien,
Yautja.
the Wayland Yutani universe, really.
Yeah, there we go. We'll put it like that, Wayland Yutani.
Yeah.
Okay, so Constant war? I wouldn't say constant
Not
war.
constant war, no.
It
But
won't be
yeah,
war.
no, not war, not war. Oppressive regimes, yeah. But that's all the hyper capitalism and stuff, isn't it? It's not just like government. Government is run by the rich companies. They do everything sort of for them, isn't it? So it's the hyper
Yeah.
capitalism. And let's be honest, your employer will feed you to an alien if they feel like it. So, not great. And if you're going to do any space travel, you're probably not going to survive it. Space travel is never good.
No,
In the universe,
definitely agreed there.
It's dreadful. Alien invasions, yeah. Not so much
Well,
the aliens
we
themselves,
skipped
apart from
we
Alien
skipped
Earth,
high
but
mortality, mate.
I think that one, not necessarily high mortality rate, depending where you are in the pecking order. So if you're
See,
high up in the company, your mortality rate will go down. If you're just a lowly everyday person, then there's going to be a higher mortality rate because you'll have all the crap jobs to do and all the danger and the mining and space
then
travel.
again, you can say the same if you're a xenomorph because you can be a mindless drone and just doing orders. You're in
Well,
a
I think
horde
we'll
being
stick it
smart and you will
more
die.
of us being humans in the universe rather than us being aliens, to be
Okay.
honest. I think that's easier, otherwise it gets really complicated, because then if you look at orcs, that's a completely different
You know what? Yeah, that's a fair point.
life to, being an Imperial Guard or being a Tau or an Eldar. It kind of gets a bit overcomplicated. So just a basic, bog standard human. So I think it's
I would say high mortality.
yeah, I think relatively high,
Rate.
not as high as somewhere with constant war.
No.
But I think it's a lower life expectancy, so you won't live to such an older age expected. Not necessarily lots of people die, but people don't reach an older age, I think, is the better way for that kind of environment. Because if you do well, then you'll have a higher age of death because you're protected by the company and you have all the benefits of that. So you'll have those weird pod things that from like Covenant and all that people sleep in to.
Yeah, I was just about to mention those because the whole Ellen Ripley and then her daughter Amanda Ripley being mother and daughter, but the daughter dies first of old age, and Ellen Ripley's still in her mid-30s by the first film.
So, yeah. And with the space travel and so on, there's a lot of hibernation and so on. So the mortality rate isn't necessarily high, but yeah, it's kind of an in the middle. Depends where you are in the pecking order, I think. Yes. So that's kind of half a point, I think, for that. Rather than being a full point, it's kind of like half a point because it does depend on what you do.
What about dystopian control? I'm a bit on the fence with that one.
I think it's half a point on that because you look at things. So you look at the most recent Alien movie. I can't remember what the hell it's called. But the people that were living on that planet were very much under the control of the company, and they had a crap life.
Romulus.
Yeah, I should have remembered Romulus.
Yeah, it was on tip of my tongue.
But you look at the people that are living there, and why they escape and all that and try and take the ship. It's because they're living in a really crappy place. There's radiation, there's everything else. They don't have a very good life. It is very much like you'd imagine a place after a nuclear war. So it's kind of that sort of living on the kind of the edge of what you would call a decent existence.
Yeah.
I think that kind of gets points for that as well. Maybe not full points, but like half points. So half points for that and mortality, because it is, but once again, it depends where you are in the pecking order. If you're high up in the company, you live a life of luxury. If you're down the bottom of the pecking order and you're cleaning bins or something, you've got an absolutely awful life and you're not expected to live long.
So that is a full point for oppressive regimes, no points for constant war.
Yeah.
High mortality, alien invasions, and not alien invasions, so dystopian control and high mortality are half points, which makes a full point.
Alien invasions, I don't think it can have a full point for that because there are some, but it's mainly us going out to find them, apart from predators. But then there's only one or two at a time, and they're not killing like thousands of people.
I'll stick with the half point there as well.
Yeah.
What about like space piracy? That's a big no. I don't remember once where there's a clear space piracy in that franchise.
There is.
Alien
4.
Alien 4, I can see there, but
That's kind of what they are when you think about it. Ron Perlman, they're a gang of basically pirates, aren't they? They're going around stealing and invading ships and space stations. That's kind of what they are.
all right, then we'll put Alien Predator Wayland in space piracy, but I'll give another
I
half
think
a point.
half a point. Yeah, I think half a point because it's not well known because everything's so crap. But if everything's that crap, then you can imagine there'd be more people. You look at Romulus; they do steal, try and steal a ship and everything else. So they try and do the piracy kind. So you can kind of look at both ways. That was kind of more of a heist, wasn't it? But along the lines of like piracy and stealing things.
So out of
Not so crap.
like a possibility of survivability, we've given Warhammer 40k a 10 out of 10 of just no.
Absolute nightmare fuel.
Absolutely
Yeah,
not.
that's awful.
Alien vs Predator, that's a 9 out of 10 for me.
Yeah.
I even though that I could live a life of luxury, what if I don't? What if we don't? What if we're one of the people that's like, oh, but you need to collect a specimen for us and come back alive with it alive as well? The whole team's dead. Me and you are the last survivor. I wouldn't bother. So I'm going to say 9 out of 10. What about you?
Yeah, definitely, because it is not somewhere you'd want to be. No matter what happens, the people in charge are always going to screw you over and kill you at any opportunity with no repercussions for themselves. So, yeah, it's an awful place to be. Absolutely awful.
All right, mate. Your turn.
Okay, how about this one? The Matrix.
Right. Don't lose your nut on this, but I've only ever seen the first one.
Good, you don't need to see the others this year, but I can explain. I'll go through some of the kind of plot points for the other two. I haven't seen the newer one yet because it's like the first one I thought was an amazing movie. 2 and 3 was stupid. There's no two ways about it. It just made no sense. So we'll go mainly from the first one.
All right.
Because that's kind of, for me, that is the Matrix. The other two expand on it in bad ways. So let's be honest.
I'll just go straight up and say, to me, the Matrix, from what I know from the first film, it isn't constant war. It's not a war.
It is, though.
I understand it is, but then again, to me, it isn't because you've got regimes going against each other.
Yeah, but it's a war against robots. Once you get out of your pod and you're in the real world, you're surrounded by killer robots. And there's just murder bots everywhere, and the world is scorched and dreadful. And everybody living in the real world is constantly fighting for survival. Even in the first movie, on the Nebuchadnezzar and everything else, they're constantly battling the squid robots throughout the whole movie. That's all they're doing, going from place to place. And don't forget, when you're in the Matrix, once you know that you're part of the Matrix, it's always fighting you. So there's always the agents constantly battling you. I'd say that's pretty much constant war. However you look at it, there's always somebody after you. There's always somebody trying to kill you, whether it's inside the Matrix, and it could be anyone around you that turns into an agent. So the agents are constantly fighting you. You're fighting against them. You're a resistance fighter. That's a war. I think the simplest way to see what the main characters, Morpheus and everyone else, they're resistance fighters, guerrilla warfare. So I'd say that's a definite constant war.
Yeah, okay, no problem. Yeah, I can agree with that. The way you've went about with that makes more sense to me. So
it makes more sense when you see the next movies, because they show a lot more of Zion and the battle against the machines and that sort of thing. You see a lot more of that, where it does kind of highlight that it is more of a war in the real world than you see in the first one, because you only see kind of bits of it. So that kind of makes more sense, and then it just gets absolutely stupid from that point. But that's kind of the world they're living in. When you're in the real world, the robots are constantly trying to find Zion and wipe out the human race, and then it just gets like ridiculously complicated. But that's the basic kind of premise of it. So that'd be a war. The oppressive regime, well, obviously, because you're in a simulation being controlled by robots that are keeping you as a battery. And don't get me started on what stupid idea that is, because the human body does not generate enough electricity at all. It's just it's a weird thing. It's a nice idea, but it's a weird thing.
What about oppressive regimes?
Yeah, well,
definitely.
Yeah, it's the robots. And stuff,
it's pretty much is.
It is once you find out what's happening. But if you're in the simulation and you don't know you're in a simulation, it's just normal life. So it's not that oppressive. It is oppressive when you find out about it, but it's not unless you do. So I think it could only be half a point because it's not always oppressive until you get out of the simulation, until you have an understanding of what you're living in.
Yeah.
I think, anyway. So that comes back to is it better to not wake up and just take the world as it is and not realize you're in a simulation?
People in that universe don't have a choice. It's either you're awake or you're super awake, per se.
Yeah.
But from us being spectators of that universe watching the films, I can comfortably say I would rather not know, because
ignorance is bliss.
I was just about to say that, you jammy little. Yeah, ignorance is bliss. I'd rather not know because I've seen it.
Yeah,
I don't want no part of it.
What is the advantage of coming out of the simulation? What is the end game there? You know, you're living a normal life. That if the machines weren't there, you'd be living the same life.
Yeah.
So once you find out it's a simulation and the machines are controlling you, you're in a pod somewhere, you've still got your full life. So high mortality rate, not so much, because they're keeping you alive. You know, you're there till knowledge. It's like normal life, unless you come out of the simulation, and then you've got a low mortality. You know, got a much higher expectation of death. So you know, that kind of is the only way. But if you stay in it, the mortality rate is kind of just everyday life, isn't it? There's nothing kind of trying to kill you. So yeah, that seems a bit. So I think it doesn't really get any points for high mortality rate because it isn't. And once again, alien invasions, not so much.
Then
it's not really alien invasions. You can count the machines as kind of alien invasion, but once again, you have to be on the outside of the matrix to experience that. But that's more of the war than alien invasion. So no, nothing for that.
So we'll say high mortality and alien invasions is a no, but dystopian control is.
Again, only if you break out from the matrix and you look at how many, 7 billion people in the world, how many people break out? Maybe 1 million. So there's not that many people that would experience the dystopian control because they wouldn't know about it.
Half a point then? Not half?
Yeah, maybe half a point because it is all being controlled and they reset it occasionally and all that. So it's not stable by any means. And you can have your life terminated at any point if an agent decides to take you over to attack the freedom fighters. So, yeah, there is a certain amount of that there.
Space piracy is a big no on that.
No,
absolutely not. So, bad place to be. We've rated Warhammer 10 out of 10, Alien and Predator, Wayland Corp 9 out of 10. What would you say for Matrix?
Well, shouldn't we do it from the points we've made? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we've got 6? Should we just get rid of the pirate and just have it as 5? 2 points for each. Would that be easier?
Yeah.
So we've got 5: constant war, oppressive regime, high mortality rate, alien invasion, dystopian control is 5. If we get 2 points, 1 point if it's partial, so the half point, 2 points if it's full. So that's 10 out of 10 for Warhammer 40k. So let's do it like that. I think it'd probably be easier, wouldn't it?
Yeah. So Warhammer 40k is in constant war. Oppressive is in all of them.
Yeah.
So that's 10 out of 10.
That's 10 out of 10. Yeah.
Alien Predator Wayland isn't in constant war.
No.
It's in oppressive regimes.
Yeah.
It's got a half in high mortality.
So that's 1 point half mortality. Yeah.
It's got alien invasions for half.
Yeah.
Dystopian control for half.
Yeah.
So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out of 10.
5 out of 10. Okay, that makes sense.
And we've put Matrix in 1 full for constant war, so that's 2. Oppressive regimes, that's 2. Nothing in mortality.
Yeah.
Nothing in alien invasions. Yeah. And half in dystopian control, so 3 out of 10.
Yep. Okay, that makes sense. That's probably easier, isn't it?
Yeah, I agree there. My next one, mate, is Blade Runner.
That's one I was going to choose, yeah. Okay. So let's have a look at it just sort of widely. So the Blade Runner universe. So there's the fake humans, the replicants, are constantly being hunted.
Yep.
If you don't look human enough, people are going to question if you are human. It's always raining.
Yeah, it is.
There's lots of smog, and air quality is bad, and it's very kind of morally ambiguous as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
There doesn't seem to be much of a moral compass, so it's a bit of an odd place. That's my
But I
concern.
wouldn't say constant war though. It's more of
No,
the
it's little pockets of them
yeah, like
against the replicants, isn't it?
it's.
So
I'd say it's more territory control.
yeah,
So nothing for constant war. Well, territory war is clearly oppressive regimes, really.
yeah. Once again, it depends where you are in the pecking order. If you work with the Tyrell Corporation, you might be in a good place. You might be in a bad place.
Hmm.
If you happen to be a replicant and don't know it, that could be awful for you. And the fact that they've just got, the Blade Runners going around basically murdering people that they think may not be real people is kind of a bit worrying as well. And it did happen a few times, where they got the wrong person and people end up getting persecuted and murdered when they weren't actually a replicant. So, yeah.
So definitely an oppressive regimes. What about high mortality? Because I'm a bit again on the fence with that because
I think that's going to be 1 point for it because it's not a very nice environment. It seems to be very kind of it's a dystopian place again, isn't it? So it doesn't seem like it's a very healthy environment. It said the smog and everything else isn't that great, and they seem to be persecuted by the different companies in charge. And again, it looks like a lot of companies are kind of in charge of a lot of things. The Tyrell Corporation and so on have a lot of control over who lives and who dies, and the Blade Runners going around and all the other things and different factions. So yeah, I definitely think it's got a high mortality rate. Not ridiculously high, but on the whole higher than we have as a normal kind of, I say normal, as a normal kind of civilization. It's higher than we would have. So
oh yeah, definitely there. I definitely agree there. So yeah, okay. Continue on, mate.
So the next one, alien invasions. Not
No.
really,
No.
unless you actually look at some of the evidence and it looks like it's actually in the same universe as the Weyland-Yutani company. But maybe we'll cover that another day because there is evidence to state that they are in the same place. And Weyland and Tyrell are like in the same universe.
Yeah,
And
there's
they've got
subtle
each
links,
of them have links, so it's possible. But once again, there wasn't that much alien invasions anyway in the Weyland-Yutani universe, so not really. So I think that's a 0 for alien invasions.
Yep, and dystopian control.
I think so, definitely.
Yep, definitely
As we're
agree.
saying, the way the place looks, and although it's in the future, it's all kind of dark and dreary and run down, and people aren't happy. There's a lot of control and everything else. It's not great considering they built the replicants to try and take away the more dangerous jobs, and warfare and stuff like that. It kind of all blew up in their face and everything kind of fell apart, didn't it? So yeah, it's not great from that perspective, is it at all?
No, so what we've got here for Blade Runner is 1 point in constant war. Oppressive regimes is 2 points.
Yeah.
High mortality is 1 point. Alien invasions is 0, and dystopia control is 2 points, which makes it a 6 out of 10.
Yeah. Cool.
Next up, mate.
All right. Let's have a look. So, Terminator universe.
I would see you took one. I took one of yours. You took one of mine.
But it all depends at what point in the Terminator universe.
Right,
Do we look at?
I'm saying we include the because in my head we were including everything that we know in our head, and that's what I'm thinking with Warhammer, Alien and Predator, Wayland, Matrix and Blade Runner. Everything that I know, that's what I was basing our conversations off.
Yeah.
So I think we should involve everything with the Terminator that we know and have seen or read.
Yeah, so in the future, obviously the possible future with the robots taking over, which is a really odd one because there are a lot of people saying that Terminator and Matrix are linked. And Matrix is what happens after the robots win.
That's an interesting take.
Yeah.
I
There
like
is someone that reckons that they wrote it that way, and it's all linked, and there are loads about on the internet about it. So yeah, so if the robots actually win, the humans destroy the atmosphere, and the robots enslave humanity into batteries. So it's quite an interesting kind of. You could imagine it leading one from the other, and that's kind of like the last ditch effort. But yeah, Terminator's a weird one. Once again, the first movie was great, the second movie was okay, and then it went downhill from there. And the newer ones have just been horrendous. Oh my god, it's so stupid.
Right, so for Terminator and Constant War, I'm going to say it deserves the 2 points because if we're basing it off what we know and what we've seen, we're basing it in the present and future because the future is in constant war and they're sending their war generals into the past.
Closer to the future, or mostly it's like we've already bypassed bloody Blade Runner anyway, haven't we? So a lot of these that were written a while ago, we've actually bypassed the future that it was set in. So I think definitely, because Judgment Day would have happened quite a while ago.
So we still can't.
We should now be living in that future where we're in constant war with the machines. Because when was Judgment Day supposed to be? It was a while ago now, wasn't it?
2015.
Was it
2015? It was meant to be in 2015.
A lot happened in 2015.
I know.
Back to the Future as well, wasn't it? 2015.
Yep. Back to the Future was 2015.
That's a lot now.
Yeah, they just jumped. Everything seems to jump up to to like things that should have happened in our universe happened in theirs. What about oppressive regimes?
Oh yeah, it's. Do we order dystopian control? Is it really an oppressive regime because they just want to kill us? So I don't think that's going to really count as a regime because we're at constant war with that. There's not really a regime controlling us. They're just trying to wipe us out. They're not controlling what we do. They're just trying to kill us.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be that.
No, I'll agree there with oppressive regimes because, the Terminators and the machines and AI is out to kill humans.
Yeah, they don't care what else we do.
Control them.
Yeah. High mortality rates,
we don't need to talk about this after what we know of nukes, futuristic stuff.
Alien invasions, no.
No, 0 out of 2 there.
Yeah, dystopian control, yeah.
It's
dystopian and dreadful, and it's not good.
So what we've got here is constant war. We have 2 points for Terminator. Oppressive regimes, we have 0. High mortality, we have 2.
Yeah.
Alien invasions, we have 0. Dystopian control, we have 2, which puts it with Blade Runner 6 out of 10.
Cool.
Right. I've got a bit of a interesting one that's popped into my head.
Okay.
And I'm going to go down the gaming route.
Right.
No Man's Sky.
Ooh, okay.
Constant war for No Man's Sky, mate.
No.
You know the game more than me, so you're leading the blind right now.
Definitely not constant war. There isn't a war. Definitely not.
All right, well, No Man's Sky gets a 0 out of 2. Oppressive regimes?
Yes.
Definitely, even from what I know.
Yeah, and you don't even know everything.
No.
Oh, yeah, it gets... I don't want to say too much about it because I think the storyline is really, really interesting. And it's something I think you do... I think we probably have to revisit it and start doing that multiplayer again just to get you through the story missions because it is really, really interesting with Atlas and everything else. It's quite interesting. There's a few kind of storylines that go along together in kind of different ways. And it's quite good when you start learning about Atlas and stuff like that. I think it's a really, really interesting storyline. But their new game should be out before too long.
True.
Light No Fire, so that might be quite good. High mortality rates.
I'd say it gets 1 point because you have you're a solo. You can be a solo player or a group, or you can have a fleet. But if
no,
you're
it's still oppressive because when you get onto planets, you've always got the constant threat of the Sentinels.
which
That is the
I
regime.
was about to say, no matter what, no matter what I said, you've always got the Sentinels, and you've got
So it is
the wildlife of
definitely
that
oppressive.
planet.
It is an oppressive regime because that is what Atlas and the Sentinels, they are constantly trying to dictate what you can and can't do. So that is 100% oppressive. I'd say
Yeah,
2
but
points for
high
oppressive.
mortality rate, I'm tempted to say it gets 1 point out of the
Yeah, only
two.
1 point, yeah, because there's a lot of things out there to try and kill you. But
Yeah,
it doesn't necessarily mean that you will get killed, but there is a
no.
higher chance than normal.
See, now
So,
with alien invasions, I don't think it's an alien
no,
invasion
because you
at
keep
all.
invading the aliens, so I don't think
Hmm.
it counts when you're the invader.
No. Dystopian control.
No, I don't really think so, because it's the oppressive regime rather than dystopian control. So, yeah.
So here for No Man's Sky, we've got nothing in constant war. We've got 2 points in oppressive regimes,
Right.
1 point in high mortality, nothing in alien invasions and dystopian control. So we've got 3 out of 10, the same as the Matrix.
Yeah, not bad. You're going to
Next
kick
up,
yourself by this next one.
go.
Star Wars.
See, I was thinking it earlier. It's like it's the big word that we were talking about, but I'm
Yeah.
not going to be the one to say it.
But this is an interesting one for this. Once again, we'll take it from like the original trilogy and that kind of thing rather than where we'd be now after the really awful sequels. So it's kind of in the middle of it, what we know of classic Star Wars, yeah?
So let's say the Clone Wars, the Phantom Menace to oh, for God's sake, Josh, you've literally just watched it today.
The Jedi.
Return of the Jedi. So the Phantom Menace to the Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
The entirety of the Clone Wars prequels and the entirety of the main story with the original three. Okay, we'll roll with that. Constant War, yes.
In places. I don't think we can kind of. I know it's called Star Wars, but every planet is not at constant war. It's not that there's a war. You have the rebels versus the Empire. Not everyone is involved with that.
True.
You look at Tatooine. Tatooine isn't at war with anybody.
They're at war with themselves.
Endor isn't at war with anyone. Hoth isn't at war with anyone. Dagobah isn't at war with anyone. So there's not a constant war unless you're in the middle of the war between the Empire and the rebels. That's the only war.
You can say the same between the droids and the clones.
Yeah,
because wherever the droids were, the clones were.
Yeah, so it's only while you're part of it. So I think maybe 1 point because you could get caught up in it as it spills over onto your world. You know,
oppressive regimes is clearly 2 out of 2 points there.
It's the Empire in it. They are highly
Empire,
controlling.
and then you have the rebellion, you have the clones, the separatists. Hell, you even have the Coruscant Council, which is a regime in itself.
Yeah.
All of those council seats are their own little regimes.
Yeah.
So definitely,
and everything else. So yeah, there's a lot. Even the Jedi are a fairly oppressive regime. You know, they're going to steal your kids. If they think they can move objects, they're going to steal your kids. Oh, they do.
Yeah,
it's what they do. Everyone talks about the Sith being bad. They don't go and just like kidnap people's kids. You're not seeing your kid again, training them up. They got some powers. Like, what? Like, seriously. Oh, by the way, you can't have any relationships. You can't go and see your family ever again. Like, I think sometimes we think of this in the wrong way with the Jedi. They're not all that wonderful, are they? Yeah.
Which is why Qui-Gon was his own little Jedi. He did not like the way of the Jedi.
Yeah, he did it really well, didn't he? Caused Darth Vader. So, you know, that's not exactly the most stable of people, was he?
High mortality. I'm going to say it's the same as Constant War. If you get caught in between, you're screwed.
Yeah, it's a 1. And if you're stuck on a planet, like, the trouble is there's a lot of different things around it. So you look at Tatooine places like there's a lot of slavery. So, you know, life is fairly cheap, human life, especially across the universe. So I think it's a 1 again for mortality. Yeah. It can be but it isn't necessarily always. Depends once again where you are, who you're around, what kind of things you do. So yeah, it can be, because life is cheap, because it is very much like a Western, really, isn't it? When you look at
Yeah,
it,
it is. Yeah,
spaghetti Western is basically what it is.
high mortality. Alien invasions.
I think we can put a 1 for that.
But I was looking at it.
can,
It's like it deserves a 1 at least, because it's not alien invasions. You have different alien species go invading planets.
anyone that invades you
help.
is going to be alien. It could be the Empire deciding they need your planet. If they need your planet, then they're going to invade it.
Yeah.
And so will the rebels to a certain degree as well. And then, look what happens if the rebels end up on your planet. Somebody blows it up. So that's an awful thing to have. So yeah, definitely an alien invasion gets a 1. It's not a constant thing, but there's always the danger of somebody else wanting your planet and your resources, or the people there to turn them into soldiers or whatever else. So yeah, there is the threat of it. Even if it doesn't always happen, there's definitely a threat of it.
Dystopian control.
I think that is a 1 because, once again, it depends what planet. If you're living on Coruscant, then you've probably got quite a nice, peaceful life most of the time. You don't get involved with anything unless you're like down in the slums. Then it's not so great. But normal, everyday people kind of do okay. Once again, on Tatooine, you look at Luke's family. They did okay. They were moisture farmers. It's not like they were rich and they had everything they needed, but they had enough to be comfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's a 1 because there are aspects of that, but it's not overriding everywhere.
The thing is, when I was rewatching the original trilogy this morning, being how geeky I am, and considering that I haven't watched the 3 films in God knows how long, I clicked a lot more better than I usually would when I was younger watching it, because Luke's family has connections to the Jawas. They're actually good friends with the roaming Jabba the Hutt. Yeah. They're good friends with the Jawas. They are protected by Ben Kenobi at a certain extent, and they know that they've got protection with the rebels because of Luke and Leia. That was disclosed in the show Obi-Wan Kenobi, that both Leia and Luke will have protection because of the rebels.
Yeah, exactly. But we always knew that because Obi-Wan was always kind of there, and Luke knew who he was.
Yeah.
He didn't know him well, but he'd seen him around and he heard of him. And Owen and so on spoke about him and didn't like him much, because knowing that at any moment the Empire could swoop in and kill them all and take Luke, which, kind of what they tried to do anyway, but for the droids. So, yeah. But don't get me started on the whole C-3PO thing, because I just
no. We're moving on. So, Star Wars gets a 6 out of 10.
Oh.
I'm going. Excuse me. I'm not a big fan of this next one. I've never really clicked onto it, but I know for a fact that you definitely are, and I'm going to say Star Trek.
Oh yeah, that was one on the list, definitely. So Star Trek, depending where you are, but on the whole, Star Trek is a different kettle of fish compared to everywhere else, because it is very much a good view of what the future could be, I guess, and it is quite hopeful. I think is probably the best way to describe it, because in the future in Star Trek, humankind have forgotten all their differences. They've become a united world, and they've become united with other planets, United Federation of Planets, and they've put aside petty differences and not so much greed. They've got rid of money and most diseases. People don't want for anything. You have replicators. People are kind of on the same playing field. Everyone has the same chances. So it's very much a kind of a better future in many ways. No racism or anything else. So yeah, so constant war, no. Depending where you are in the timeline and where you are.
But that's the thing. When we compare Star Wars and Star Trek with, say, constant war, Star Wars the lore, from what we know, is that there's always been Sith, there's always been Jedi at a war. But in Star Trek, because of it being so ridiculously long, and I think it is long, like the history and timeline is longer than Star Wars by like times 5. But
Yeah.
Well, from
it is,
from what I know, there
series,
isn't constant war. It's like little battles.
there is war, but the war is being fought by the armed forces. Really. So you look at like the Enterprise and stuff like that. They're not a constant war, but they do often get pulled into conflicts. There are wars that happen. There's the Dominion War. There's the war against the Borg. So there are wars that take place, but it doesn't tend to affect the normal everyday people quite as much as it would if it was one planet. Because it's a big universe and Star Trek is spread out between a lot of it, then constant war, no, not as much.
Oppressive regimes.
There are parts of it, but once again, for the average, and we're looking at us being average, everyday people in the universe, no, because once again, the United Federation of Planets is kind of a nice sort of organization where they want everyone to live in peace, and and people can choose to pursue the things they want to, so they can pursue art or science or whatever else. So people have more opportunities without having to worry about money, but there's lots of holes in that, obviously, because then who would want to clean toilets? Who would want to work in a pub? You know, there's a lot of that stuff that doesn't make sense, but it's definitely not oppressive.
We're saying not. 0, definitely.
0, yeah.
High mortality.
God, no. Mortality rate, no. The life expectancy is increased substantially into, 100 and whatever for standard people to live to.
Yeah.
So, yeah, high mortality rate, no. Unless you're on a spaceship and you wear a red shirt. Then it's a high mortality rate. Because if you're in a red shirt, you get sent to a planet, you're dying. That's Ensign Andrex. He's disposable. That's it. No. So unless you wear a red shirt on spaceships, no, mortality rate, not at all.
Alien invasions?
They happen. But once again, because there's so many alien races involved in the Federation, it's not something that happens often unless there's a big war taking place. Yeah. So I'd say a no on the whole. They happen, but not frequent enough that you'd need to worry about it.
And as for dystopian control?
There are parts of it on some backwards planets throughout the universe, but on the whole, if you're in the Federation, you're pretty okay, and everything is kind of nice and simple, and you get to pretty much do what you want when you want and have quite a nice life. So pretty much no for that as well.
I'm more inclined to say 1 because of the whole planetary situation behind the scenes, but then again,
no, it's definitely not, because you look at like Earth is like a cultural center of the Federation. There's everything you could ever want. It's there's healthcare available. Everything you need is constantly available. You have replicators, can just make any food and drink and whatever else you need all the time. You need more clothing, you can just use a replicator. So definitely no dystopian control. There are, if you look in the history of Star Trek, like you look at First Contact, which is one of the Next Generation movies, where they deal with the Borg going back in time to try and stop Zefram Cochrane, who is the guy that created warp drive. And the whole thing with that, he created warp drive, and when he sent the ship up into space, a passing spaceship that had Vulcans on it saw the warp signature and then came down and met the people of Earth, and that's how they became part of the United Federation of Planets. But Cochrane and the people he was working with, that was more dystopian because it was after World War III. So a lot of resources were scarce. I know people were struggling to survive. He used an old nuclear rocket to make his ship. So it was called the Phoenix. So there are parts of that, but that's going way before the TV shows. You look at the first series with Spock and McCoy, and I'm not looking at Enterprise because I thought that was a dreadful series. But you look at kind of the normal timeline of people on the Enterprise and so on, and definitely no dystopian control. Although there's the United Federation of Planets kind of control that goes on, but it's only for Starfleet itself. So the people on the Enterprise and the kind of, I don't want to call them like a a space navy or something like that. It's kind of what they are, but they're supposed to be more exploring rather than going out to fight people. They do obviously end up fighting people, but they're there to explore. So no, definitely no dystopian control either.
Then Star Trek leaves us with our first big 0 out of 10.
Yeah, which is what Star Trek is supposed to be. You know, there's no racism. Everyone has sort of equal opportunities and so on. So it's kind of, you know, it's that hopeful look at the future when we've stopped hating each other. And a lot of people have said the reason why we still have wars on this planet is because we haven't found the Klingons yet to have a go at. You know, it's people in this world fight over ridiculous things, whether it's land, resources, religion, or whatever else, or because somebody's different. Well, if suddenly we had the Klingons up in space, the entire world would have more chance to be united, going, but they're not from our planet. So it's no longer about not from my country, not my religion. It's like, they're not even from this planet. We'll have a go at them instead. And it's a way to unite the people of the planet because we've got somebody that we hate more than each other. Which is a weird way to look at it, but that's kind of what Star Trek is. And then they did make friends with the Klingons a certain amount by Next Generation, but that's another story. But there's always races they don't like, the Borg and the Dominion, and there's a lot of other races that want to kind of wipe out the Federation and so on. So there's a lot of that as well. But that's, you know, you need stories, don't you? But yeah, I think it kind of makes sense that it would be a 0 because it is kind of an idealistic view of what the future could be if we all lived in peace and didn't hate each other.
My next one is the first generation only. No Michael Bay Transformers.
Oh.
So G1 Transformers.
Once again, we're looking at this as humans, yeah? Not as Transformers on the planet Earth.
Yeah, we're
Transformers on Cybertron.
No, we're human point of view on everything. That's what I also been going off as well.
Well, this might be this could possibly be a 0 then.
Well, Constant War. I'm tempted to say 1 out of 2.
No, because you look at the original G1, and most people on the planet wouldn't really see much of the Transformers at all, or even know they exist. The whole point of the Transformers, they're in disguise. So there are very few people that see them, unless you're working in the Burma crystal mines or, you know, in the dam or something like that, where the Decepticons attack to have power. If you're living in Wales, you won't even know what a Transformer is. So it all depends. If you're where they need something from, then yeah, but it's not constant. It's only if they want something, they'll have a go at the place you are. But if you're not, then you're never going to see it.
If I said all of Transformers, or more specifically, if I said we're talking about the Michael Bay Transformers, Constant War would definitely be at least a 1 or 2. Because
it wouldn't be a 2, a 1 because they're kind of. But once again, nothing's happening over here. It's all in America. So over this side, we're not going to see it. It's not
but at the same time,
us.
In America, but again, no. I'm going to say you're quite wrong there, because with the Michael Bay universe, yes, it is primarily in America, but they went to Egypt, they went to South America, they went to the British Islands.
But specific places for specific things.
But if we're talking about G1 Transformers, I will agree with 0 there for Constant War.
Yeah, because most people just wouldn't see it, because the whole nature of Transformers is they're supposed to kind of hide in plain sight in it and do things in the background. So yeah.
What about oppressive regimes?
Again, you wouldn't see anything different. The general people. It'd be different if we looked at it from the point of view of a Transformer.
Yeah.
But from humans, no more than it would be without the Transformers there.
So 0 out of 2 there.
Yeah.
High mortality.
Again,
0.
Unless you're in the armed forces or you happen to be working in a power plant or something, it's not going to make any difference to you at all, is it?
Nope, but we can say difference for alien invasion. I'm going to say 1.
Yeah, 1, because it is happening.
Yeah.
Especially
if it was the worldwide thing, definitely a 2. But again, because G1 is primarily its own place, it isn't even specified if it's America or not. It's its own world, and it's happening, but the whole world doesn't know about it.
No, exactly. Even when you look at Transformers the movie, although technology moves on, it's not necessarily that everybody is aware of the Transformers still.
No.
I think it's still a small number of people are aware of them.
What about dystopian control?
Again, I think that's going to be a
0.
0.
Well, we've got our first one.
Yeah.
Which is G1 Transformers.
G1 Transformers. Right. I'm going to take one before you take another one because you've just done 2.
No,
right,
I didn't.
So,
did I? Oh, yeah, I did.
I'll
I'm
take as
so
well.
sorry. I am so sorry. You go ahead. You have 2.
No.
I didn't notice
No. That's fine because, one of them was kind of my thing anyway. I'm going to have to do this one.
Oh, no.
Destiny.
That was my next one.
I figured that. That's why I quickly get it in.
Yeah, I was thinking it. We did know it's Sky. Destiny.
Destiny. Right, so Constant War. Yeah.
Definitely 2 out of 2 there. I would argue if you said 1 out of 2.
Oh no, it 100% is Constant War. It is. There's no two ways about it. No matter where you are, there's constant war with somebody. Whether
or
it's
something.
with Guardians that are a bit nasty, like some of the old lords, or whether it's invading armies, which we'll come to in a minute, there's always something trying to kill you. Definitely.
Oppressive regimes, definitely, because you have all of like Hake, Omolon, then Tex Mechanica. That's just for the light bearers and the humans. And the Awoken and Exos that are just living out their lives. But what about all of the houses in the Elixni? All of the houses in the
there's always somebody trying to control something in there.
So 2 out of 2 for oppressive regimes.
Yeah.
High mortality, we don't even need to speak about that.
Because once again,
there's
not many people left. So
poor explosive shanks.
Yes.
Poor me. Well. Alien invasion.
Constant.
We don't need, constant. It's
constant alien invasions, let's be honest. Dystopian control, yeah.
Yeah, 2 out of 2. Bad place to be. Definitely 100% of the time. And
not as bad as Warhammer 40,000.
No, not as bad, but
that's still pretty bad. Because there's always a possibility after you die, you come back as a Guardian. So there is some light.
Mate, come on.
You didn't like the light at the end of the tunnel.
Oh my god. Stop making puns. So, Destiny is our second 10 out of 10 rating. Yeah. You go again, mate. You go again.
Oh, I'd have to think of another one now because we've used up most of the ones I can think of.
I've got a fair few still in my head, mate. Unless you want me to go again.
Okay, here's one, right, that's kind of in between. Pokemon.
Would you count Pokemon as sci-fi?
Well, it's not in the normal timeline, is it? They have some futuristic tech because they can put creatures in little balls.
Do you know what? Pokemon, screw it.
I just thought this would be a weird one to kind of, put into this, and it depends how you look at it as well, doesn't it? So, Constant War. Not really. Nobody really dies,
battles, that's it.
Yeah, Pokemon battles, and that's really about it. But oppressive regimes.
But just quickly on the Pokemon battles, that's clearly the word battle, not war.
Exactly. Unless you happen to be a Pokemon. And then it's a completely different thing, let's be honest.
Wow. Yep.
Then it is constant war and everything is dreadful and you hate life. But if you're not, then it's fine. Yeah, oppressive regime. Once again, if you're Pokemon, hell yeah. If you're not so much.
Well, actually, oppressive regimes, I'll
give it a 1.
A 1 because you have the gyms.
The gyms
Mystic
and
Valor.
Rocket.
Yeah, and Team Rocket. Then you have
and Brock trying to shag everything that moves. That's really oppressive of him.
Nice. So yeah, well, I'm going to say 1 out of 2 for oppressive regimes.
Yeah.
What about, are you going to agree there? 1 out of 2?
Yeah, no, definitely, because there are oppressive natures to a lot of it, and the fact they're kicking 10-year-olds out the door to go into the outside world and fight with monsters. Like, what the hell is that about? You're 10 now. You have a pet. Get out.
Yeah, bugger off.
What? What a weird thing to do.
High mortality. I'm saying
Yeah,
big
nobody
no
ever
there.
dies.
No.
Nobody ever dies in Pokemon.
Besides
Weird.
Ash in that one Pokemon film.
Yeah.
Alien invasion is a big no.
No. Dystopian control. I think we put a 1.
One, yeah, because again, that falls under the oppressive regimes with the gyms
Yeah.
and Pokemons and stuff.
And
It falls underneath
it's
that.
the whole kicking kids out at an early age to go and fend for themselves. That's not a normal kind of lifestyle. It's a really weird thing to do.
I would hate to turn 10 years old and be told by my mum, dad, you're being kicked out.
Here's a rat. Get out on the road and make your own way somewhere. Like, but it's just a rat. What do you want about? Like,
level up.
Here's a rat. Make it fight other rats and other animals and see how you do. And don't come back.
Well,
it's a very strange world.
Pokemon is our first 2 out of 10.
Wow.
I'm going to go and say next Starship Troopers.
Oh, I knew you had to go Starship Troopers. Love
the first one only. The first one only.
Oh, don't count them. Oh, you count the book. Probably haven't read the book, have you?
No,
if you ever saw the
I've
TV
got
show,
the book.
Have you ever seen the TV show they did a cartoon that was closer to the books than the movie was. It was quite interesting. And it was all kind of computer animated. A long time ago, that was. But yeah, I do like Starship Troopers. I like the way they do the whole thing. Well, obviously Helldivers has kind of taken that on board and done the same way. Like, would you like to know more? Help the army and all this. I just love all that. The kind of propaganda they do, I think, is just wonderful. It's so well done. Oh, brilliant. So Constant War, yeah.
Yeah, 2 out of 2. I wouldn't say anything else.
Yeah, 100%. And the bugs are bloody awful, aren't they? Let's be honest. Oppressive regime, oh yeah.
Yep, definitely.
You're going to get in the army and we're going to just like, if you don't do your job properly, I'm going to shoot you myself. Oh, nice. Thanks for that. Yeah. High mortality rate. Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Dreadful. Alien invasions. Yeah, that's part of the Constant War.
Yep.
This is a quick one. Dystopian control. Not so much. 1.
I'm going to say 1, yeah.
Yeah, because it does have elements of that as part of the oppressive regime. So, yeah, definitely some of that, but not necessarily all of it, because it is mainly the people that do sign up or are forced to sign up to the army.
Yeah, well, Starship Troopers lands us our first 9 out of 10.
Wow. That's mad. That is mad. Well, we should probably put together a list, because time's getting on, and we should probably wrap this up. I think that we've covered most of them, haven't we?
Yeah, I'll quickly run over what we've ended up with. Yeah. So, Warhammer 40k, the entirety of it is a 10 out of 10. No.
That's top of the list, yeah. We wouldn't want to ever live there, yeah.
Then we've got Alien and Predator World, in brackets Wayland Yutani, 5 out of 10.
Can we put this in? Do you want me to put it in order, or do you want to put it into a ranking?
I've got it here. I'll put it in ranking.
Yeah, so that'll probably be easier on it.
Warhammer 40k is 1.
Yeah.
Destiny is 2, with another 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
9 out of 10 for Starship Troopers, so that's it at 3rd.
Yep.
Then we have 1, 2, 3, which are on 6, and that is Blade Runner, Terminator, and Star Wars. I'm going to say Terminator takes 4th, in my opinion.
Yeah. And then Blade Runner, then Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. Because there is at least some hope in Star Wars.
Yeah, definitely.
You could be far enough away from it that it is never going to affect you anyway.
Yeah, so then we've got Alien and Predator Wayland, which is 5 out of 10, which gives it straight up next up, which is 7.
Yeah.
The Matrix is next with 3 out of 10, joint with No Man's Sky.
Yeah.
Which one would you put 8th and 9th?
Out of those two?
Yeah, I'm more inclined to say No Man's Sky.
Matrix is a worse place to live because No Man's Sky, you can go anywhere and do anything, whereas Matrix, it's okay until you realize it's a simulation, so there's always the chance that something will happen that'll make you realize it, or somebody will pull you out of it, or something like that will happen. So there's not as much free will. So I think that makes it a worse place.
Okay, agreed, which means No Man's Sky is at 9th.
Mm-hmm.
And by a process of elimination, Pokemon having a 2 out of 10 puts it in 10th. And then Star Trek, by a process of elimination, is last with 0 out of 10, which makes it 11th.
Makes it 11th and the nicest place to live. How very different.
The vast difference between Warhammer and then Destiny and Starship Troopers, and then you've got the likes of G1 Transformers and Star Trek.
Yeah, and Pokemon.
Yeah.
Oh, that's mad. But there's so many we didn't do as well. There's so many different things, like Hunger Games we didn't touch on.
Yeah, oh God, screw living in that.
Yeah, exactly. Or Doom.
Yeah, Doom.
No, could have done that, but I feel that's a bit easier to go, yeah, this is awful, don't want to have anything to do with that. So, there's a lot of things like that. The Black Mirror universe, there's lots of different things.
Oh, we forgot Pacific Rim as well.
Cyberpunk 2077.
Jesus.
There's
almost a door open for a part 2 of this.
Yeah, exactly. It's crazy, isn't it? It's such a simple idea, but there's so much out there. And being the nerds we are, we know about most of these things between us. We know almost every single bloody TV show and movies out there. So yeah, it's quite.
That's something that we didn't do. We didn't do TV show. We didn't add a TV show.
Well, apart from Star Trek, but that's movies and TV shows.
Movies and TV shows. Yeah, actually,
Transformers is a TV show.
Yeah, I was about to say I'm an idiot. We've got G1 Transformers, which is TV show and one film.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, definitely. We kind of smashed it there, to be fair.
We can revisit it at some point and see if we can find any that are a nicer place to live or a worse place to live. That'd be a challenge to find.
We should speak about it off the mic for a season 2 and do an actual tier list.
Yeah, maybe do it. Yeah, and do a video and do a tier list of where we put them. Yeah, that would be quite good.
Yeah, but we'll have to make. Pardon?
It'll be a much quicker to run through them, but we have to compile them all together as a list, so then we can do the tier list on podcast and actually put them into. Yeah, I think that'd be quite a good one for the next series. Yeah, I think like that.
Yeah, definitely. Season 2, we'll get to speaking about it off the mic and sort it out in the next couple months. Yeah.
Oh, that sounds good. Hey, plans for the future. I like it.
Likewise, I love it.
I've enjoyed that. It's been nice to just do something completely kind of
this was completely different.
And we do tend to pick subjects that seem like they're quite normal, and then we go off on a tangent and they become deep and meaningful. And this really isn't at all. This is just kind of like, what would this be like? So that's quite good. I enjoyed that. It was a little bit of a kind of a different kind of vibe to it. So anyway, I like that. Where can people find you if they want to catch up with you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitch, The Welsh Assassin, and on YouTube, The Welsh Assassin 998.
And for me, you can find me on Twitch as Nukami or on YouTube as Wasn't My Fault. So thanks a lot for joining us today. Please join us again next week. And until then, see you later. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Hulf out.